Hello everybody and welcome to this week's video. In this video, we're going to look at the topic of the symbols found within Reiki. And it's a big topic because at present, my gosh, I don't even know. At present, how many symbols would there be? I bet within the entire universe of energy healing and Reiki as a practice, there's probably 30 at least different symbols, and new symbols seem to be coming up all the time. So a question that I've just received in the Usui Reiki Ryoho support and community group on Facebook that I manage is a overview and an understanding of all of this universe of symbols and what do they mean, and isn't it making our practice more complex, or is it making it too difficult to wade through the meaning of all of these symbols? So I want to unpack a little bit of that here in this week's video. Now, within Usui Reiki Ryoho, we have 4 symbols. We have Chokure, Seihiki, Honjaze Shone, and Daikomyo. Daikomyo is the master symbol that you learn at the master level. Now, there's I'm hesitating here because there's so much even just in these 4 symbols, and I go into them at the length that they really deserve within my courses and my Reiki trainings on RootsofLife.org. I'll give an overview here as to, kind of the meaning behind those first 4 symbols, and then we'll expand into the other symbols within Reiki. So, Chokure, Seihiki, Honjaze Shone, Daikomyo. When we think about a symbol, right, a symbol has meaning because of the meaning that we attribute to it. It has a purpose or a function or a significance only because of the significance, purpose, and function that we have placed onto that symbol, right? And I really appreciate this. I appreciate so much this part about Usui Reiki Ryoho in that we're talking about simplicity. If we look at the 4 symbols within Usui Reiki Ryoho, the only one of them that is wholeheartedly a symbol, we could say, is Chokure. And the second symbol, Seihiki, is kind of blurring the lines between what it's a symbol and then maybe it's something else. And then we've got Honjaze Shone and Daikomyo, which are literally just the Japanese kanji of those 2 symbols, right? So they're not even symbols, they're just telling you what they are. So why is that important? Well, let's start with Chokure. Let's start with where we are at the very beginning, the first symbol. When we look at the meaning of Chokure, when we look at it as a symbol, most people within Reiki, to me, they incorrectly attribute Chokure to the ability to make energy stronger or to empower Reiki. But we can't empower the energy of all things. So we have to look at the symbol itself for its deeper meaning. And if we notice the symbol being drawn, right, with this vertical component and then the spiral, if we see that on the body, well, then there's a deeper meaning to what Chokure is all about. Chokure is about the feeling of the energy of all things permeating and filling up the body and restoring us on a cellular level so we can really feel and become aware of that energy that is already within us, by the way, right? We are already Reiki. We are not separated from the universal energy or the energy of all things. So if we can be aware of that, and if we can look with Chokure at the word Reiki together, let's unpack that very quickly. Reiki means universal life force, right? So we can see that meaning in Chokure. The energy is coming down from the universe and filling the body. Universal life force, right? It moves through us, right? That's really beautiful to me because it's very simple. It's a way to feel this energy that we all are, but to really allow it to be our focal point in the body, okay? So we don't have to make that discussion any more complex or any more exaggerated than simply that. Feel the energy in your body, and as you feel it, then the resistance within all of us, like our trauma, our disbelief, our monkey mind, all of the things that we carry, that starts to settle down so we feel more of this energy that is just moving through us, right? Now, the second symbol that we look at is Seihiki. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of discussion on this because here's where it really starts to demand a very long conversation. So suffice it to say, if we look at Seihiki, the traditional meaning is balance, right? It's the ability to recognize masculine and feminine, or the duality within all things. Now, the origin of Seihiki is actually found within the symbol or the main representation of the Amitabha Buddha. And the Amitabha Buddha is the representation of Pure Land Buddhism. It's the focal point within Pure Land Buddhism. This is what Mike Usui, or Usui Sensei, was practicing. He was a lay monk, a Tendai and Pure Land Buddhist monk. So his practice really did gravitate around the Amitabha Buddha, right? And if we can see the symbol here for the Amitabha Buddha, and then look at the similarities to Seihiki, I think you can see where those symbols are coming from. And so what does this imply? It implies that if we are balanced within us, right? If we don't recognize a difference between the left, the feminine, and the right, the masculine, if we instead recognize the significance in Gassho when they come together, we bow in Gassho, well then we have a union of Qi, right? The union of Qi is what Gassho, the first meditation in Reiki, is all about. So if this is unionized, if we feel that presence as not masculine or feminine, but simply as that vertical line of Chokure, then we start to feel that there is something beside ourself, right? There's something beyond ourself. There is me, the physical being, recognizing that I am also a being of energy. And if I can recognize that I'm a being of energy, then that brings me closer to the fundamental practice within Pure Land Buddhism, which is to recognize the Amitabha Buddha and to recognize the pure land within all of us, which is Daikomyo, right? It's the universal energy. So then if we start to recognize this balance within us, we start to feel more of this energy. And not only do we feel it, but we start to give it no story. Super important. We can't be balanced in our approach to energy if we are still saying, oh, but it's on this side, or it's this trauma, or it's this angel, or it's this belief, it's this whatever. We have to recognize nothing, right? We have to observe the energy, just recognize it in the body, observe it without reaction, without movement, without fear, without any story. And it starts to then recognize that this is our real story. It's our true self. So when we start to feel that, then we start to see the meaning of the third symbol, Honjaze Shone. The light within me recognizes and cherishes the light within you. So it's a beautiful connection, right? It's like, hold on a second, there's this energy in me, but I'm getting less aware of who I am. So if I'm less aware of who I am, then that means that the separation between me and you doesn't exist. Honjaze Shone, the distance symbol. See, quite often people are saying that this is the symbol that they will evoke in order to send Reiki. That doesn't make any sense. Because how can you send something to another place that is already Reiki? I've said this in many of my videos, I'll say it again. That's like me saying that I'm going to pour water on the ocean to make it more wet. It's already wet. We can't make it anything more than what it already is. We have to let go of the friction within us, or the separation within us, or the perceived separation within us, I should say. If we can recognize that this energy flows through us and moves around to nourish all aspects of our being, chokure, and then we can recognize that through this nourishment in the body, that our body will go back to neutrality like everything else in the universe does, right? If it's not acted on by an outside force, everything remains neutral. So we can build that neutrality in our body by simply recognizing the second symbol, Seihiki. And once we feel that there's an enhanced amount of neutrality, then we start to recognize that separation is a myth. It doesn't really exist. Honjaze Shone. Now the step further from that is, as soon as we recognize that separation doesn't exist, well then what are we left with? I'm not me, I'm not you, I'm not the tree or the earth or the beautiful countryside here in France. I'm all of those things, all at the same time. Dai Komyo, the great white universal light, right? The pure light that shines through all beings, through all things. Dai Komyo, the light of illumination, you might call it. So to me, going back to the very beginning of this video and the kind of the question here is the complexity of the symbols. You see how approachable that is in Reiki? There's 4 symbols. The first one is very clearly a symbol, which might, of its origin, it might have a lot to do with Usui Sensei's enlightenment and the way that he felt this great Reiki over his head and so on. And that's all far too much to talk about in a short video here. It's covered in length, like I'm saying, in my videos and my courses on RootsofLife.org. So we go from that very clear symbol with dubious origins. We then familiarize ourselves with a symbol that has a very clear origin, with the second symbol of Seihiki coming from something that's already been recognized, the Amitabha Buddha. And then we just have 2 symbols that are just the kanji, just the written language about what they are. So a very simple approach. So then what happens when there's all these new symbols? Why do we have all of these new symbols? What's the point? Well, remember what I was saying, the symbols have meaning because of the attributes or the stories that we give to them. It's not that any symbol has more or less power or more or less meaning or more or less whatever. There's no reason for comparison here. The symbols have the meaning and the power that you give to it, right? So if we view, let's say Zonar or Raku or any of the Tibetan symbols or any of the symbols in all of the new lineages of Reiki or whatever, doesn't make any difference. If we view any of those with an increased level of importance, then we're going to seek the meaning of that symbol from our practice. We're going to look for the experience of that symbol to manifest within our practice, right? And this is, to me, this is the biggest problem with all these symbols. Again, it's not that they don't mean anything, but most likely, I can almost promise you that these symbols were given to the practice by a teacher who was locked in the delusions of their own belief, right? Because the story seems to always go like this. I downloaded this thing, I channeled this thing during practice, and now it is more powerful than the original symbols. I know that many of you listening would have heard this far too many times. 5D upgrades, next dimension, like healing, the ability to 10 times make these things 10 times more powerful than the original Reiki symbols, or the Reiki empowerment for the next millennium, or all of these really grandiose statements, which mean literally nothing. They can't mean anything because that's all the belief of the teacher, right? It's all the belief of the person who is bringing that symbol to you. So you can't get any stronger than Daikomyo, which is just the energy of all things. You can't make that stronger. You can't make it weaker. You can't send it over time. You can't do something to the thing that is everything, right? So to me, it's preposterous that there are claims about all of these other symbols and these other lineages of Reiki and all of these other things that are like, a new world upgrade for Reiki that just happened this year, and I happen to download it and I'm now selling it. Okay, maybe. And in that, you get 5 new symbols that have never been seen before. Okay, maybe, but that's not how it works. That's simply not how it works because of these axioms. If that's the case, right? If that is actually the case, and it's the most powerful thing, then that's all we would use. It would easily beat out everything else, and everybody would feel a very clear difference. That's not how it works, because I get so many of my students who are coming to me from other lineages and other practices who recognize that the water is muddied up by the belief of the teacher, right? By these stories and the pomp and the circumstance that surround these very special symbols that have been gifted to the world or whatever. Go back to its simplest discussion. Chokure seihiki honjaze shone daikomyo. That's it, right? One of them is a clear symbol, one is a partial symbol, two are just written language. There's no need for excess story there, right? And when my students who are coming to me from other lineages, this is their biggest gripe, right? This is the thing that they're talking about. There was just so much story, there was so much belief, there was so much narrative by the teacher that this is the right way to do it and this way is not the right way to do it. We don't talk about that in Usui Reiki Ryoho because it just doesn't make sense. Shinperen, the mystery teachings or the master level of Reiki, where we learn Daikomyo, is all about letting go of Reiki. It's all about Ansen Ritsume, which is a quiet mind, right? A mind that is still and hopefully free from the attachment to such delusional belief. Now, I know that sounds maybe a bit harsh, but there is some potential benefit, potential gains, I guess you could say, in the belief. Like, we need to believe in something sometimes. Sometimes our healing journey is just a little bit too intense. Our journey up the mountain is probably, for better or worse, maybe it seems insurmountable. It seems like we just can't do it on our own. That's normal. That's totally fine. And in that space, I totally get the need for story, right? Or for somebody to help bring us up the mountain. But at some point, when we reach the top of the mountain, by definition, you're the only one there, right? You're the only one at the top of the mountain recognizing your own illumination, your own satori, your own enlightenment, your own whatever you want to call it, right? Nirvana or Christ consciousness, whatever you want to call it, that's you and yours alone. That's not your teachers, it's not the symbols, it's not Reiki, it's not Usui Sensei, it's not this video, it's you and yours alone. That's it, right? So at some point, the attachment to all of these other symbols, all of these new stories, all of these new lineages of Reiki, and all of these things that people say that they can upgrade you to and empower you with and do all these things via these new symbols that they themselves have just discovered or downloaded or uncovered or whatever it might be, every single one of those paths is a dead end because you're looking external. You're putting your belief into something external to the self. That's only going to get you so far, right? We have to always look internal to the self. We have to always go in to ourself. I'm the only one on this planet, in this entire universe, that can heal me, because the physical form that is surrounding the Daikomyo, or the energy of the universe, that is being nurtured by the energy of the universe, is composed of my story and my trauma and my journey, right? So I am I meaning Bruce in this physical form, am the only one that can go in and fully look at that, right? So we have to recognize that in our journey. We have to recognize that when we go into the self, then we don't need anything else except those four symbols of chokure, into the self, seihiki, balance in the self, honjaze shone, recognizing that I am now connected to or a part of a greater whole, and daikomyo, recognizing that that whole is just energy, or energy of the universe. And then the step further with that within Usui Reiki Ryoho, which is what I love so much, is when you get fluent with those four symbols, you let go of all of the symbols. Let go. You let go of the hand placements, you let go of the symbols, you let go of the chanting, you let go of the precepts, of the teachers, of the lineage, and you simply reside in the nature of the self. If you want to see a little bit more of where this is coming from and a little bit more of the history on this or the mythology on it, please go through my channel and check out the talk that I did on Kurama Mountain, right? Because at Mount Kurama, where Usui Sensei had his enlightenment, they worship a deity or a representation of the energy called Sonten. And Sonten is figureless and formless, right? It is when the entire aspect of the three diamonds in our body, again, in Usui Reiki Ryoho, we have the three diamonds or the triple diamond system. It's when our body or those aspects, those energy centers are balanced, are calm, are quiet. If you've never heard of the triple diamond system, it's the same thing as the chakras, just divided into three components as opposed to the seven main chakras. So think about Sonten as being this representation of the self when it is completely still. We are formless, we are effortless, we are daikomyo, right? So to me, that's the beauty of the 4 symbols by themselves, is that they help you go inside. They help you recognize that there's no self. They help you recognize that you need to let go of the self and then to become Sonten, or become the Pure Land within all of us, right? The more that we look external to those symbols, then the more chance, I can say fairly, that that story will become muddied up or convoluted because of the belief of the person or the teacher or the lineage or the school of thought that is bringing you that symbol. There's no need for any of those things. And indeed, in Reiki, there's no need for the main 4 symbols. I want to be very clear on that. I'm not trying to put Usui Reiki Ryoho on a pedestal above all the other practices. What I'm trying to get across is the beauty of Usui Reiki Ryoho is its simplicity. And it's, at its master level anyways, the constant request that we simply let go of the practice of Reiki and the symbols and everything else that goes with it, so that we can finally turn into the self and we can finally recognize our own Satori within. I hope you've enjoyed that video, everybody. I hope it helps with your practice of Reiki, whatever lineage it is, and I hope it helps with your understanding of the symbols and maybe how you can incorporate them into your own journey with energy healing and Reiki. Thank you so much, everybody, for your support of the channel as well, and thank you for the comments and the subs. I really do appreciate it, everybody. Thank you so much, be well, and as always, In Gassho to all.